So every season I start with a ton of fresh ideas and I have to whittle it down to a small handful of items, and it's hard. And in the past, I must admit, I used to wing it. Everything was based very much on vibes, but now I have something of a system going on which I follow mostly. And I thought you might like to see, or at least to chat with me this week about how I go about figuring out what items are worth making and adding to a collection and what ideas need to be shelved. Hello, I'm Kim. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new here. This is the Coffee and Craft Chat, where I drink coffee. I can't really show you, I don't want to spill it, but I've added chocolate powder on top to make it look fancy. It's not fancy, but it makes me feel like I'm treating myself. What else? Coffee and craft. Oh yes, the craft, it's in my lap. This is the cardigan that you saw last week when I was chatting about gifting and personalisation and stuff. And I need to weave in my ends. So that's my craft this week. And for the chat, as I said, we're going to be talking about my system is the word that I was going to use, but that sounds very purposeful. I do have a system and it is purposeful. I'm just not afraid to scrap it and be led by vibes a little bit when I need to. But I was doing that too much in the past and it just meant that my launches were chaotic. I would set a launch date and I'd constantly have to change it. And I've just tightened things up so that I can actually get things done. So yeah, okay, I'm going to own it. I have a system. Yeah, and that's what the chat part of the Coffee and Craft Chat is going to be about this week. Just as soon as I can thread my needle, because no crafting is getting done if I can't do that. Peh. Needle is threaded. Coffee is hot. Let's chat. So my business is called Beech Tree Handmade, by the way, and just to add a little bit of context to this video, I make physical handmade products, and usually this would be the point where I'd be like this, because I often display a lot of them on the wall back there. However, that sort of brownie patch that you can see on the wall there, I'm doing some DIY in the office. You can't really tell, but beyond the back of this chair, the office is an absolute tip, so it is what it is. But the things I make are handmade project bags, upcycled clothing. I also sell like embroidery supplies, stick and stitch patches, mending kits, clothing patches, that kind of thing. Just to give you a bit of an idea as to what angle I'm coming at. And I try to have products in my shop that are evergreen, and by evergreen I mean they're available all year round at any time. And then periodically throughout the year I will launch collections, shop updates, whatever you want to call them. And I'm aiming for 4 a year. Now in the past I was very strict about trying to keep to the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And I think now I'm letting myself let that go because I found it too restrictive and it was part of the problem. So now I actually have certain months of the year that I'm aiming to get a collection out. And if you're watching this at the time it goes up, my next collection is due towards the end of November. The one after that will be February. And basically they're like within 3 months, every 3 months or so. There's a reason for this. I'll get to that. I'm skipping ahead. This is why I write notes for every video. Anybody who thinks that I just hit record and just, I mean, you're not wrong. That is a big part of it. But I do have to write a whole sheet of notes just to keep on track and make sure that the video, you know, has a point. So yeah, if you keep seeing me look down here, it's because notebook, need it. Can't see it, but I need it. Okay then, step 1. Step 1 actually starts with my phone. I have a gallery, I have a folder in my photo gallery where I keep any photographs that I take that just influence me, inspire me, light a spark. And I also have a notes app where I just jot down all sorts of ideas for themes, colours, the products themselves. It's heaving. Not even for this collection that I'm working on now, but for the next one that's happening in February. It's already starting. Now, usually as customers, you don't see any of that. But this time around, with this current collection that I'm working on, I actually was able to use some of the photographs from my gallery to use in, I'll put it here, it's basically the collage that I posted on Instagram. It was meant to be like a mood board, basically, with the sort of colours that I'm thinking of with the collection. There's some snippets of some of the jumpers so that you can see the fabrics that are being used, and there's some photos of the moon, because I don't know about you, when there's a really beautiful clear night and you can see the full moon, crescent moon, whatever, just the moon, it's like I haven't ever seen the moon ever. I must take photos of the moon for prosperity. Tell me I'm not the only one that does that. And it never does what I'm looking at justice. Nuthatches are back in the garden. Oh, I do love autumn. Focus. I love this window for the light that I get when I'm filming, but oh my days, the distractions. Right, come on, focus, Kim. That's the first step. Everything goes in my phone. It starts here. When I'm ready to start brainstorming ideas, and this is usually after I've launched the previous one and there's been a little bit of a good week at the very least, but sometimes I'm just so itching to go that it creeps in a little bit earlier, but I try to give a gap between launching the previous collection before starting work on the next one, because I think as makers and artists and all the rest of it, I think we're guilty of just not allowing ourselves to sit and just appreciate the work that we've done. It's on to the next constantly. And a part of that is because we love it so much. Like we love the process, we love what we do. But I do think, at least I find, I need to make myself sit down and go, that was a bloody good bit of work. But when we get to that stage, it's so much fun because it's literally a pad and you're just, or a spreadsheet, however you like to do it. But for me, I like to physically write things out, and it's just brain dumping all of the ideas, anything that's sparked by the photographs, the notes, just putting it all down, maybe even especially the weird and silly ideas. Everything gets put down. And I basically just keep on going until my brain feels like a sponge that you've squeezed every drop of water out of. Until I reach the feeling that there's nothing left in here. Everything has to come out. It's like a creative purge. So dramatic. Now, as I've said, by this point, I already have my launch date mapped out. I already know, for example, which month I'm going to launch things in. So even next year, 2026, I already know which months I'm going to be aiming to have a shop update. But this is where I'll nail down the date, and it will usually be the beginning or the end of the month, a Monday or a Friday. There's no real reason for that last bit. It's just it feels better in my head. Bearing in mind, when I do actually launch something, I do tend to just fall in a bit of a heap and puddle. I say puddle, where you just sort of feel like you're melting into a puddle and you can't do anything. That tends to be my brain after a launch. So it takes a lot of effort to stay visible when really all I want to do is just press publish on everything and just be like, bye now, I'll see you later. And doing it on a Friday especially does kind of allow me to do that, because then I have the weekend. No one's really expecting me to be too present, because obviously it is the weekend and they're doing stuff, because people have their own lives. They're not just constantly focused on what we're doing. I think maybe unconsciously that's why I like launching on a Friday. It allows me to have time to go, because launches are hard work. They take a lot out of you. Right, that leads to step 3. Okay, this is where the numbers come in. Because there's about 3 months in between each of my launches, I know that from my business point of view, I know roughly how much I need to make from this, say for example, YouTube channel for it to be sustainable. And I know how much I need to make from my physical handmade business part in order to keep that sustainable. So I have an amount in my head to cover that 3-month period. So I have that figure. I know what my profit margins are for every single item I make. So from that, I can work out roughly how many things I would need to make for that collection in order for it to be, as I say, sustainable and pay my bills and things. And I usually add a little bit more on for wriggle room. So I've got my baseline goal, and then I've added a bit more just in case, because you never know exactly what's going to sell. It's kind of educated guessing. I mean, you can do your research, but nobody knows for sure. That's why you end up being such a sort of like a husk towards the end of it. Like I said, it takes a lot out of you, not just physically, but mentally. Okay, so I've got my 3 steps there. The first one was collecting all of my ideas in my phone. The second was taking those ideas and brain dumping them onto a piece of paper. And then the third step was knowing my numbers, knowing exactly how many items I was going to have to make in order to be able to keep the wheels spinning in my business for that 3-month period. First 3 steps done. And those 3 steps are the building blocks, and this 4th step is where it all starts to come together. And if you have been following me here for a little while, or if you, for example, were a member of my Patreon back when I was talking about YouTube for your handmade business, you will have heard me wang on about this so much. It always comes back to your customers. But it really does. And in this whole like setup that I'm doing here, this is where my customers and what I think they will want or what they will resonate with comes into play. So I asked myself 2 questions. Who are my customers right now? Because it does kind of fluctuate. And then the other one is, what is the other one? I've forgotten. What will be important to them at the time of the launch? And this is why it's so important to know what my launch date is. If you think it's not that important, check the video that I did a few videos ago about my failed launch. And then you'll find out exactly why it's so important for you to know what is important to your customers at the time of launching, because you can get it really wrong otherwise. So for me right now, who are my customers? Well, my customers are primarily women from the UK. And they tend to be people who craft, who make, who knit, probably a lot better than I do. And for those of my customers who like clothing, it's people who like to wear something that's a bit different, something that they can't find on the high street. That's important. So those are my customers right now. That answers that question. And the second question, which is what will be important to them at the time of the launch. Well, my next launch, as I say, the end of November. And this is why the geographic information is important as well. Here in the UK, the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to be dark, it's going to be cold, we're looking right at winter, we're looking right at Christmas, it's going to be there. So these are the things that are going to be influencing any purchasing decisions that my customers will make. It will be a good time to launch jumpers because of the said coldness. Again, referring back to my previous video where I launched a bunch of equally warm jumpers in the middle of a heat wave in the middle of summer. Warm jumpers were not what were important to my customers at that time. I broke my own bloody rule. I don't mind telling that story. I know that, a failed launch is usually quite painful, but that launch was specifically to pay for a fridge, weirdly, and we got it paid anyway, but it was just like, oh, okay, learning opportunity. And I should have known all of those lessons. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let's crack on. And of course, Christmas is right around the corner. So people are prepping for the holiday season and the festivities and gift giving. So that's going to be a huge thing on the minds of my customers. So this is why I made the video last week about gifting and personalization, because this is where that is going to come into play in my own items as well. And so hopefully you can see how answering those 2 questions, who are my customers and what's important to them at the time of the launch, that helps me go through my list of all of my brain dumped ideas and see what aligns with that. This is where things will be like, not that, not that, not that, not that, and I'll highlight possibly that, definitely that kind of thing. And by the end of that, what I normally have then is a condensed list of items, some of which I absolutely want to make and will be making, and others, sometimes there will be something else that needs to happen first. I'll need to do a little bit of research as to whether or not it's sustainable, because obviously if it's going to be too costly to make or too long, sometimes even a great idea has to be shelved for another time. But I will have a more manageable list of things that I can make and add for the next shop update. And then this is where I can then start making a list of the materials that I will need to make these things and start planning out my calendar, which is basically taking the date that I am at right then, taking my launch date and sort of reverse engineering all of the things that need to be done, how many things will happen in a week in order to get everything done on time, etc. That is a recent change that I've made that has been a complete game changer. Because in the past, I used to set myself a launch date, have a list of things I wanted to make, and that's where the winging it would come in to play. And often I would start slow, not doing too much, and then start realizing that I was running out of time, and then do too much towards the end and fall into a heap. Whereas now I'm splitting it up quite equally so that every week I'm doing something. For example, today is going to be an editing day. Once I've finished yapping at length, I'm going to edit this video. Tomorrow, though, is going to be a stitching day, and I'm going to be starting to stitch up the jumpers. And we're just in the middle of October, and this isn't happening until the end of next month, but I'm already there. So I've got my calendar planned out, and that's the step that I've put in place recently that's just helped bring all of the other elements that I do together to just create a system that works really, really well. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you need to do this. This is one of those videos where it's kind of take what serves you, leave the rest. And if nothing else, it's just sometimes interesting to find out how other people run their business. I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm a little bit nosy and I like to know. And if you would like to see more of my process behind launching this particular collection that I'm working on now, you can head on over to the channel membership. The latest video has gone up, and I have actually told channel members, if you're watching by the way, if you haven't checked out that video, check it out, because this month I share with members what the theme is, the official theme for this collection. I haven't announced that yet anywhere else because channel members get the tea. Everybody will. I will announce it. It's just, you know, I like to share this stuff with members as I'm doing it. So I do month-long vlogs. So I'm doing a little bit of filming every single week for it. Sometimes a little bit every single day. Like I did some yesterday. I'm going to be doing some more tomorrow probably. But it's a chance for me to show people behind the scenes of my own business, how I do things. For example, the collection, how I go about not just making the items, but working out what works and what doesn't. I think people would be surprised if they saw just how much tinkering goes on before anything even gets made. And then, yeah, at the end of the videos, I do like the monthly reset segment that I used to do here on this channel. So it's like goal setting, reviewing previous goals, running over the challenges that's from the past month, and sales, talking about my sales and how many I've made both on my website and Etsy. It feels like a safe space to be able to share that and also have conversations around that and share more gubbins like this without worrying about boring people. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, head on over and watch the latest video. It's quite long. It's nearly an hour. What can I say? I like to yap. And on that note, I'm going to stop yapping, finish this cuff and my coffee, and then I'll crack on with the collection again, because the work is never ending. And I'll see you next week. Ta-ra.